So welcome everybody. We're down in California, downtown Los Angeles, with a very special person called Magnus Walker. We're in his garage, his place. It's incredible, and welcome Magnus to the show.
Well, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for having me on the show. It's good to finally have you guys come over to the space. Met you a couple of times before. Recently saw you at the LA Auto Show, the 2015 show, where I was debuting my latest build, the 964, which I think is my defining style and performance build to date. But we're not really here to talk about 911s. We're here to talk about Porsche in specific, and I guess fire away.
Go for it. Obviously, you have an incredible collection. You've had many Porsches over the years, and we're just curious, what's next with Magnus when it comes to Porsches?
Well, your timing's pretty good because you're arriving on a day when I caught a dose of what I like to call 914 fever. Apparently I caught a double dose of it because for me, one obviously is never enough. I'm one of those guys that likes variety. So my Porsche collection, my out of control hobby, is pretty well documented. A lot of people know me as the early air-cooled 911 guy, but the new goal for me, having owned over 50 early 911s, and from early I really mean from 64 all the way through 73, and then with a dose of what I like to call my first generation turbo fever, which is essentially early 3-liter turbos from 75 through 77. My new goal is to own one of every model that Porsche has ever made. So I finished with the early 64 through 73 long wheelbase and short wheelbase cars, moved into the turbo fever, had a couple of G-body SCs, and now I'm up to date with the 964. So when it comes to 911s, the chronological next step obviously is 993, and with the ultimate goal of owning one of every 911 all the way through to the 991. So 993, 996, 997 are on the list. Currently I'm sort of actively looking for 996, either turbo, GT2 or GT3. And then when it comes to 997s, I've sort of been fortunate enough to have a lot of Porsche buddies that allow me to experience what I call OPP, which is other people's Porsches. You know, it's one thing owning the cars, that's great, but obviously, you know, I don't have the means to own everything I like. So I've had the opportunity to have quite a few friends with pretty special cars that allow me to drive them. My buddies Sharkworks have basically loaned me that 997 GT2 that's outside. But I've also had the opportunity to drive Porsche supercars, the 959, the Carrera GT, the current 918. So I'm pretty well rounded in the diversity of what Porsche offers in the sports car world. But for me, my next goal literally is to own not just one of every 911, but one of every sports car Porsche's made. So I've already started with what I call the front engine water-cooled ugly ducklings, as some people refer to them. But I'm a big fan of everything Porsche has ever built. So I want to experience what it's like to have a Porsche with a motor in the front. So I've already got the 924 Turbo 1980. And its big brother, the 924 Carrera GT, of which Porsche only made 406 examples. So sticking with a front engine water-cooled theme, next on the list will be a 928. So I'm actually actively searching for a Series 1 late 70s, you know, non-spoilered first generation 928 manual, ideally a European version, ideally in some sort of oddball color, you know, preferably not red, but I'm open to, you know, oddball colors, even copper brown metallic, stuff like that. And then I have a 944 Turbo S on the list. I just acquired those two 914s, so that covers the mid-engine variety of air-cooled Porsches, but I also want to experience mid-engine water-cooled, so that naturally leads to the Cayman. I think Cayman represents a lot of bang for the buck. You know, that car's almost 10 years old now, so there's a lot of opportunity to get a lot of performance for not a lot of money in the sort of early first, second gen Cayman market. So the new goal, essentially, to sum it up, to recap it, is experience everything Porsche has to offer in the sports car market, not just 911s, but front-engined, mid-engine, rear-engine, both air and water-cooled. Because for me, I'm not so much one of those purists that's only about air-cooled. Naturally, air-cooled is where my heart is, but I like to experience variety, and to me, that's the best way to experience it. I'm a Porsche guy. I always say Porsche's my drug of choice. So now I'm just getting a, you know, a new fix of a couple of different varieties of that Porsche drug.
Sure. I mean, obviously, to find and source these vehicles and the parts, how far do you go? Do you go across the globe? Is it purely just out in the...
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, right behind you is a 1975 right-hand drive turbo. In 1975, Porsche introduced a 930 Turbo. 40 years later, it's still in production. Porsche made 284 cars in 1975. Of those 284, 17 were right-hand drive. That is a right-hand drive car. Originally a UK car, which in 1980, when it was 5 years old, went to Australia. Now, if you'd said to me last year I'd be buying a car from Australia, I'd say, you're crazy, why would I do that? But in reality, within a 6-month period, I didn't just buy one, I bought two. I bought that 1975 right-hand drive Turbo and that 1980 924 Carrera GT. And both those cars actually represented pretty spectacular deals, because I think a lot of people might be put off buying a car halfway around the world. To me, it didn't really matter. The cost of actually shipping it here wasn't really that. It was probably twice the price it would have cost me to ship a car from New York. So it wasn't cost prohibitive, and I actually got pretty good deals on both those cars. So to answer your question, cars find me. Sometimes I'm on a quest to search, like my current 928 search. I've been on that quest for a year and I've yet to acquire one. But I'm looking everywhere, all the obvious places like everyone else does, the Samba, Craigslist, eBay, and every forum out there. But I would say 75% of the cars that I've owned and still own were never officially advertised for sale. It's like that yellow 914, my buddies owned it and just said, hey, you're looking for a 914, here's one for next to nothing, and that was how I acquired that car. So sometimes when you look for things, you don't find them. Sometimes when you're not looking, they pretty much just appear on your doorstep. So.
What an incredible journey so far. And obviously, when you were very younger, as a younger age, you obviously wrote the letters to Porsche, and obviously now you're heavily involved with Porsche. How's that journey been for you so far, and what kind of experiences have you had?
I mean, pretty unbelievable. It's pretty documented. I fell in love with Porsche when I was 10 years old. I did write that letter to Porsche. They did write back. The kind of interesting thing is now I'm getting people writing me letters that have shared that same common story. And, it's just a pretty remarkable, unbelievable experience for me to sort of be living my dream. It's like the dream came true. I jokingly refer to this as an out-of-control hobby. And, technically that's what it is. I don't build customer cars. I don't really sell cars very often. Occasionally you got to sell one to pay some bills or chase something else down. Occasionally you'll look at a car and think, well, if I sold that, I could get 1, 2, maybe even 3 other cars of lesser value that are more significant to me right now. So it's interesting. Some cars you're really connected with, like 277, for example. Other cars sort of come and go and you're not quite as connected with. It's, each one's, I call the same but different. No two ever drive the same, because the majority of these cars are at least 40, if not 45 years old. So they've passed through a lot of hands and share a lot of different stories. But to me, I say we all speak the same language. I say it all the time. Doesn't matter whether you speak English, German, or Japanese. We speak Porsche. And so to answer your question, to be involved with these cars, to actually meet collectors and enthusiasts from all over the world that share the same passion, and to be invited to do certain events with Porsche, to me it's about as good as it gets.
I can understand that. That's incredible. One last question I have for you, Magnus. Obviously, if there's a lot of people out there chasing a dream, do you have any kind of inspirational kind of, this is what you want to do, you should go out there and do?
Yeah, my message is always really simple. Keep it simple. Don't overanalyze it. Of all the cars I've owned, I think I've only ever once done a pre-purchase inspection on them. I go on gut feeling a lot of the time. I say there's a Porsche for every budget. If you want to get behind the wheel and you're on a modest budget, $5,000 literally gets you behind the wheel of a 924, or more modern version of a Porsche would be a $5,000 to $10,000 Boxster. So basically you can get behind the wheel of a Porsche for sort of an affordable amount of money, and obviously experience what Porsche has to offer, from a 924 to a Boxster. Those are great entry-level cars that basically could be had in good driving condition here in the States for under 10 grand. Under 10 grand doesn't really buy you a lot of any car, but it'll get you in a 924 or a Boxster. So to me, if you want to get into Porsche for the first time on a budget, obviously that's what I recommend and suggest, and just dive in. I've never second-guessed anything. My motto is always, how bad can it be? Expect the worst, hope for the best, and I never really overanalyze what I purchase, because everything can be fixed. They can put a man on the moon, so how bad can that 914 that I just took delivery of really be? So having owned a lot of them, obviously, I'm not intimidated really by issues that crop up, but I've never been super nitpicky. I build cars for myself. I don't build customer cars. I don't build cars to go to car shows for someone with white gloves and Q-tips to judge and tell me what their opinion is. I've always sort of built and collected for myself things that I like, which, you know, may or may not have been ahead of the trend. You know, I never, truth be told, really spent a lot of money on anything that's in here. You know, I've always searched out the cars that I'm drawn to for whatever reason. You know, and currently those are front engine water-cooled and mid-engine air-cooled 924s and 914s and everything in between. So for all you first-time Porsche owners out there that never really thought about getting behind the seat of a Porsche, what are you waiting for? I just say, get out there, go get one and go see what it's all about. Doesn't matter whether the motor's in the front, the middle, or the rear. If it's got a Porsche badge on it, it's a Porsche.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show. It's been a pleasure
No
speaking
worries.
with you, and we look forward to many projects coming from you in the near future.
Well, you guys stop back whenever you like. You're always welcome. Next time we'll go for a spin when we got a little bit more time, and you guys will experience what that visceral rush of a air-cooled 911's like from the seat. So see you guys next time. Thanks for stopping by. Cheers.
Cheers.